Welcome back. In this part, we'll pick up where we left off by taking the textures we created in GIMP into Materialize to generate our maps. Then we'll jump into Unreal Engine to set up the texture graph and create a custom shader. So let's get started. We're going to go back into Blender over here, and we do need to bring that map. So I'm going to Control-C, Control-V this, because I can now just click on the Open button and select the alpha. And I can plug this over into the alpha like that, and that should now give us what we need. We do need the same map bringing over into here as well. Okay, and copy it and again into the alpha. And now we get these nice looking plans, and as you can see, there's more detail onto these plans than what we had before onto the previous material, like a lot more material, a lot more. We don't even have a normal going for it, but we will do in a second, I mean, you know, later on. But now let's look at the actual flowers, because these need to be done as well. So we're going to go back into edit mode, and we're going to press Alt H, right? And again, we're going to select these particular flowers because that's what we want to edit. And in here, we are going to delete these maps, and we're going to bring the maps from the other material, which are these two. Going to copy them, bring them over to the plant, and now we are going to link them together just like that, like we did before. But we do need to go back into the UV editor, so I'm just going to go in here. Now, again, we have the plant selected, and we do need to Control I and H so we can hide everything else. As you can see, this looks quite odd. And I am going to select all of the plants, right? So all the plants are selected, and now I'm going to scale them down. And again, I'm going to bring them over here on top of the flower. Just something like that. Okay. Now we need to look very closely to see if this is looking okay. Now, again, there were 4 polygons there, 4 meshes. So if we switch over to view this, there are 4. It just so happens that each of them kind of falls in the area that they need to be in order for the plant, you know, for every one of the leaves of the plant to kind of show up. So that's quite neat, and it's quite cool, okay, that this works. And this is now done. If we go over like that, you can see over there, they're quite nice. Now, there are some areas where they're like, you know, kind of falling into each other, but that's not really the problem of the texture. This is more the problem of the actual you know, just how these are spawned. They're kind of showing up in one another a little bit. Okay, now we want to do the stem, so we're only seeing the stem right now because I've hid everything else, and the stem is quite easy. I wouldn't really bother about these caps. You'll notice there's some caps in there. I just wouldn't bother about them. I would select everything. So by having this button over here active, I would just select everything, and you can actually move this away. So I am going to have to make sure that in the shader editor I am using the same sort of textures, so deleting everything here and going over to the leaf, selecting both of these points and bring them over to here. Actually, I don't need the alpha for this one, so I can delete the alpha for now. And now we can go back into our UV editor, switch over to not see the wireframe, and we do have to position this over to the stem. Now we're going to have to scale it down quite a little bit, and we're going to have to make sure that it's kind of falling into place. Now this is going to be a bit of a tricky one, because you'll notice that in some cases it shows up okay, but in others it's not that good. And this is where you kind of need to work out what's the best sort of placement in here, you know. So SX, SY, you can see that, right? We have to scale up and down. So scale again down. Just make sure that it's kind of falling in there in the middle. Okay, something like that. Now look at it up close and just notice that there will be still issues. So you've got to make sure that when you scale, it's not looking too bad. You're not going to get incredible resolution on this as you do it, purely because of just how this functions. You know, it's quite a lot of you know, a gigantic type of mesh on one small slice. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't make this a bit longer. You know what I mean? So you could get that to be longer and look better. Yeah, so maybe something like this will be okay. Now if we press Alt H, this is what we're getting. That's the stem over there. These are the leaves, and these are the flowers. Now again, more work can be put into the stem if you'd like, but for me, I'm just going to kind of go with it, but you know, something like this, right? I think this is okay. It's not going to be that visible anyway, as opposed to everything else. Okay, so we have now aligned everything up, and that's brilliant. We know that this is, if we keep this shape of the texture, then we know that this is how our plant will look like. But we actually don't have anything apart from an opacity mask and base color. We actually have no other information for this. So this is the point where we can generate new maps using the Materialize app. And one of the things about this particular tutorial is that we are going to effectively take a texture and we are going to be able to use all of the maps to give it its much needed detail. That's going to be quite transformational for the way your foliage looks and how it behaves in Unreal Engine. So this is kind of one of the main differences of what this tutorial does as opposed to other tutorials out there online. Now, before we move forward, I want to quickly mention that if you'd like to learn more about Materialize and how to use it effectively for generating high quality texture maps, I've got a dedicated tutorial that goes in depth on the software. It covers everything you need from creating normal maps to ambient occlusion and more, using just a few clicks. I'll leave the link in the description, so feel free to check it out if you want to dive deeper into texturing with Materialize. Now let's get back to our workflow. Now I've gone in depth a lot in Materialize and how to use it, so I'm not gonna repeat this, but we are going to be generating our normal map from here and an ambient occlusion map and also a roughness map, give or take. So we're going to press on the open in here so we can actually select the texture that we've made in GIMP. I'm going to double click that, and then it opens like that. Now we want to create the height map first, so we're going to click on the create height map, and over in here I'm going to use this slider just to have a look, and I believe that this is looking quite okay straight off the bat. One thing that I will say though is that when you look at over here, it does say like the stem is coming outwards, right? And this is not really appropriate, like this particular vein in here. So you would want to probably look at, inverting that effectively. But this is, you can kind of do it this way. You will have to play around a bit with it a bit more. So just bear in mind that this is important that you kind of get this right, depending on your particular usage. Wherever it's white, it's going to be, coming upwards. Wherever it's black, it's going to go downwards. So this is why, as I said, it's important that you kind of have a look. Maybe something like this would look quite okay. Yeah, something like that maybe. Right, once we do it, we can then say, yep, set the height map, and then we can click on the create normal map, and this will obviously create a normal map. You may want to, again, adjust certain settings in here, like for example, the final contrast will give you more detail on the normal map. You do have some other options in here that you can play around with the frequency equalizer. So again, Materialize comes with a lot of stuff, but it's important that you kind of work out what you're going to end up getting. So one thing that you can do is you can say, yep, set normal map, but maybe you want to see the full material. So we can click on show full material, which is going to kind of give us an indicator of what's happening. So how the leaves and everything else is going to behave once we export it. Okay, now the next thing we can do is an AO map. I'm just going to click on the AO map and just set as AO map because I think it's fine. And I'm also going to create a smoothness map. Now we're going to use this slider to have a look, and this smoothness, if we invert this could act sort of like a roughness map, right? And this is why I am, strongly suggesting that you kind of play around with this until you get a nicer effect, because it's the only way that you can get this particular effect from Materialize. This is the only way that you can get a sort of like a roughness map straight out of Materialize, is to kind of do it this way. So for me, I'm trying to get more smoothness onto the veins and stuff, and then more white towards the leaves and so on. Okay, now I'm going to set that map as well, and we do need to let me just set it. We do need to now export them. So we're probably going to export, we're going to export the diffuse, the normal, we're going to export the smoothness and the AO, right, not the height. And to do this, we're going to press on the S button in here, and I am just going to select the plant texture PNG, and this is, well, actually, obviously I don't need to export the base map, the base color, we already have that, but I can export the normal, so I'm going to put _N from normal, and just click on select. This will create the map. Then I'm going to be saving this one here, and this is not going to be N, this is going to be R from roughness, just so we know that. And then I'm going to select the AO, So again, in here, we're just going to put AO, right? And that should be it for the maps, but we can bring them over into Blender if we would like. So if we go back into the shader editor, we have in here the normal map. Let's just select the leaves so we can do it there. For the leaves, it probably make more sense. So I'm just going to go over into the folder where I have the maps. And this is the normal map in here. I'm just going to drop it. I'm also going to drop that roughness maybe just to do a bit of a test for now. Now, the normal and the roughness, you definitely want to switch these over to a none color. That's the best way for us to do it. And I'm going to drop the normal into here like that. And this is going to give us a normal map information. Obviously, this is set to 0, so I can set this to 1. And I can take it to maybe like a larger number, maybe a 5. And then I can also take this and plug it into the roughness map in there as well. And this is just going to create a bit more shininess to our textures. You can see there like that. I'm also going to copy these two maps and bring them over into the other leaf in here. And then connecting this over to the roughness and then this over to the normal and with a value of 5. So that's how that looks like now that we have a normal map and a roughness. We can do the same thing for the plants, which should in theory give more definition. So we do have those two maps, bring them over in here, put the normal first and a value again of 5. You can see already it's popping a lot more. And I'm going to put this over into the roughness. There wasn't much roughness to talk about when we generated this. And the final thing, we can do it here as well. So again, roughness. And then this one for normal and give it a value of 5. Okay, so this is how our plant looks like now without any sort of like further adjustments. And this is in Blender, but we obviously want to bring this over into something else, like we want to bring it for Unreal Engine, right? I can switch this over to Cycles as well if we would like to have a look. This is what that looks like in Cycles, so it's not too bad. Considering that we haven't really done anything exquisite or interesting with the shader. We just simply hooked up a few maps and we didn't do anything else. I also wanted to mention that all my projects, including the World Forge project featuring my foliage system, are available on Patreon. On top of that, there's a variety of other exciting projects like space scenes, black holes, planets, and so much more. These projects are all accessible to my Patreon subscribers, so if you're interested in diving deeper into my work and supporting the channel, I'd love for you to take a look. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you for your support, and let's keep creating together. What we want to do before bringing it to Unreal Engine is we want to export it from Blender. So we want to export this particular plant, otherwise it won't actually work in Unreal Engine with the new UVs. So we're going to go File, Export, FBX, and over in the folder that we've kind of saved everything. So I'm just going to go into that folder, which is here. I'm going to call this Unreal Engine plant. Make sure selected object is ticked and make sure that the geometry is set to face. Click on the export and this will bring it over into Unreal Engine. Well, we have a setup scene. So in here we can right click and click on the import, and over into the folder that we've actually added the plant earlier, we will be able to see it. There it is. I'm going to double click it. Over in here is going to ask us a few questions. We're just going to click on the import button. This will bring the plant over and we're now able to start using it. So the plant will come in with all of its, like it'll bring in the textures, materials, and so on. But if you really think about it, right, we just want one master material. So I am actually going to delete all these materials. I am going to keep the texture, just one texture, right? I don't want all of these base colors and all of the stuff that is brought over with it. So we really just need this, right? We need the mesh, base color, normal, and we have this in here, which is the roughness. I do want to bring in the AO as well. So we do have to go back into the folder where we saved all the maps. And this is where we have it. And that's the AO right there. So I'm going to bring that over as well in case we want to use it. Once we do that, we can now right click and generate a new material. We're going to call it M plant just for argument's sake. We're going to double click it. And then over here in the material, it's pretty straightforward for now, because what we're going to do is just bring in these maps. So that's a plant, diffuse, AO, normal, and roughness. But we do want to use something called the texture graph in Unreal Engine in order to combine some of this stuff, because I don't want to use 4 textures for one plant. I do want to kind of lower this down to 2 textures. And not to mention, we haven't yet brought our AO, so this is also another map. So that's going to be 5 maps that we will have that we don't want to, you know, that's going to be a very expensive process. So we might as well just use a texture graph in order to lower that cost effectively. Now, before we get to work in combining these textures, we've got to make sure that we have our texture graph enabled. This obviously only works for Unreal Engine 5.4 or above. So just type in texture GR, and then once you see texture graph, just enable it and then restart the engine. And this should basically allow you to now combine textures within Unreal Engine from multiple maps into making them into just one specific map or multiples. It should help you out considerably to increase your workflow effectively and just you know, just merging loads of stuff together. Now we have it opened again, so I'm just going to go back into Unreal Engine, into the folder that I've created, the level that I've created. I'm now going to open this, you know, I've got the implant here. I don't actually have to open it yet. I'm just going to first create a new folder, and I'm going to call it texture graphs, just so we know this is where we're going to do our work. I'm going to double click it, and over here I'm going to right click, go to material, actually go to texture, sorry, and then select texture graph. And this is going to be texture TG underscore, and I'm going to say BC from base color. So I'm going to double click this to open it, and this is the texture graph. Now what we want to bring is the combined channels over here. So effectively we're going to feed the materials in this node and then into the output. Now we're going to call this RGB, well actually we're going to call this BC plant, right? So just so we know that's the output, that's going to be the output. And I'm going to go back in here, going to bring my base color, and I'm going to combine base color with opacity. So I'm going to put the alpha like that. Now we want the alpha to go into the A channel, and then we want this to go, you know, this goes as an RGB. So for us really in here, we have to combine it effectively. So actually, let me just see if it has a combined channel. Well, it's got a combined channel there, but you see there's also a split channel like that. So we can put it in, right? And we're just getting RGB, right? And this is what we're saying to the nodes. Now, if we disable everything, this is what's going to show up in the alpha. It's going to show up in the blue, G and R, right? That's effectively what we're getting. Once you do that, you click on the export, and this file opens. This box. Click on the export, and there you will have it. This is the new output. Okay, this is a new texture that we've generated, and we can obviously rename this to BC plant. I'm not sure why I didn't just rename it when I saved it, but whatever. There you have it. This is the texture. Now we want to then export some other things. So we can delete this if we would like to. Let me just leave that in there. This one, I'm just going to just leave it to output for now. But we do need to bring in other textures. So we do have the normal map, okay? So we could bring the normal map, and we can also add into the alpha of the normal map, we could add the AO. Okay, so I'm just going to put the normal map there, and then I'm going to put the AO. This is going to go in the alpha. This is going to go like that. Okay, now the final output, again, if we take everything out, this is the AO, and this is going to be the normal. Okay, so again, I can click on the export. This is going to create an output, and if we go over in here again, this is going to be our output for it. Now it's a bit tricky because we might not get a good effect from the normal if we do it this way, but we will try it out and see if we have any particular issues by doing it this way. If not, we will have to create a separate map for the AO, and also include the roughness in that as well. So we're going to go back into here, and we are going to open this material that we created. So this means that I don't actually need, I can keep the normal in here just to test it out. I don't need the AO, I don't need the roughness, and I don't need the alpha, and I won't need this base color. I'm just going to leave this in here just as a test. So now in the texture graph, I'm going to bring in the base color, and I'm also going to be bringing this new normal that we generated. Now this RGB is going to go in here, and this is going to go into the opacity. Now we're going to change this to masked, so we can actually use the alpha over in there. And this one is going to go, RGB is going to go into the normal, and then the alpha it's going to go into, well, ambient occlusion, right? Okay, now we're going to click apply, and we're going to go back into here. I do want to drop my mesh into the world, and now I want to bring in that material, this M plant, and I'm going to drag it in every slot. I'm going to put it in every slot in here, like that. Okay, and this is what we're getting. This is the plant with the leaves and everything, and the alpha working as intended, okay? But I do want to go and try this normal map instead. So I'm going to put that in the normal and click apply, and just see if we're getting a different result. Now you can see, not really, okay? It's not really giving us an incredibly different result. So I wouldn't be too, won't be too problematic if we actually do it this way. Now, one thing that it's not seeing this as a normal, and this can be a problem, right? It's not seeing that particular texture as a normal, but this one, it is being seen as a normal. So just bear this in mind, that this potentially could be a problem. So I'm going to click apply again, and this is what that looks like. But we are going to develop the shader a little bit more, just so we can actually make sure that we're doing this correctly and we're not getting any particular problems. One thing that I'm also noticing is that from underneath the plant, we're not seeing any of the leaves, and that's because over here in the material, we're going to make sure that this is a two-sided material instead of a one-sided. So now the plant, we can see that from underneath as well. Okay, first thing I want to do is I want to add a flatten normal, and I'm going to put this over in here, and I do want to connect the normal to it. Now I'm going to right click and promote this to a parameter, and I'm going to call it normal intensity. And this normal intensity will be set to a value of 1, and we're going to click apply. Now, when we do that, we should now be able to control our intensity. This also means that we do want to generate a material instance out of the plant. So we're going to right click, create material instance, and then this instance will be dropped into each of these slots so that we actually are able to control our material via the material instance. We're now going to double click and open it like that. And you can see that we have this normal intensity in here that we can now play around with. Now, as we change the intensity of this normal, it doesn't behave necessarily as intended. So could this be because we're not using this map? Well, I don't know. Let's try it out. We're going to apply this change, and now we're going to have a look in again, seeing yes, it was a problem. So this kind of answers a question straight away, meaning that over here in the texture graph, we will have to change the way that we do this. So for example, the normal will be left alone, but instead what we're going to do is we're going to be removing all of these nodes like that, and we're going to use this particular texture, which is the AO. We're going to put that into the red channel, and then in here we can now bring the other texture, which is going to be this roughness, and we're going to put that into the green channel. We don't have anything in the B or the A. Obviously these could be extra maps that you can create. Now we're going to click on the export button, and we're going to press export. Then we're going to go on texture graph in here, and this is our new output, and we're going to call this T_AOR like that, and then plant, right? So we know this is the new texture. We're going to bring our material back and go into the M plant, and we do want to bring this new texture, okay? We want to leave the normal as is. We're going to delete this. So the red channel will go in the ambient occlusion. Let me just show the plant again. And the G channel will go into roughness, okay? Now we're going to press apply, and this will give us the result that we want. And obviously with the control of this, we can increase or decrease our normal, which is giving us far better results now than before, and it's making our plant look a lot more detailed. Okay, now continuing on with the material setup. So in terms of the control over roughness and base color and things like that, we do want to set up some extra nodes. I'm just going to put a normal away because we don't want that anymore. And over in here, we're going to add a multiply node. We're going to plug in the roughness in here, and over this, we're going to promote it to a parameter. We're going to call it roughness intensity, and we're going to put the roughness intensity to a value of 1, just so it's the base number. And this is going to go into the roughness in there. Now, in terms of the metallic, we're going to add a value of 0 because we don't want our surface to be a metal. And also in the specular, I am going to create a new parameter. This is going to be called specular intensity. And this is going to be a value of 0.5. And we can plug this over into the specular and press apply. This gives us a bit more control over the plant as well. So we can now play around with the roughness, for example, by increasing these numbers. Or we can decrease the roughness, so this can become a very shiny plant like that, maybe to a 0, maybe like it's wet or something, but it is using a map though, so it will give us a better result for the roughness than not having a map. And obviously the specular intensity will allow us to again change the specular of the plant as we see fit. So a 0.5 I think is generally a good number. Okay, looking at over here at the actual, at these plants, the flowers as well, just bear in mind that right now everything is controlled via one material. So, we can obviously create individually for each of these. We don't have to have all these slots if you're not using it, but this is more for being able to have more control over your material. Now, the base color itself in here, we can now add a lerp node. Oops, sorry. Right, lerp node, I'm going to put the RGB into the A channel, and then I'm going to create a new parameter here, convert to parameter. This is going to be a tint color, and this can go over into the B channel. We'll leave it as black, but then the alpha itself is going to be a parameter, so S, right, tint intensity, and right now we're going to keep it to 0, but we're going to plug it in there like that, press apply. And what happens is, if you want, you can basically let me just see, oh sorry, I didn't plug it in. What now will happen, this will allow us to set a color for the plant. So this is actually quite good, because if you go to tint intensity and just increase it, oh sorry, gotta make sure that the tint color here, yeah, we've got to make sure that the tint color there, it's actually got a color. So maybe we can push this to like a blue or something like that. And now you can see that we can change the tint of the plant on the whole plant by blue. But obviously if we set up on each slot a different kind of color, you can control the look and feel of the plant a lot more. Setting this over to black and increasing or decreasing it will obviously darken the plant, but just having a tint intensity of 0 with no color is going to make sure that the plant looks as it's based on the material that it it was created with the texture that was created with as well. Now, one final upgrade that I want to add is some subsurface scattering. So we're going to put that into over here. We're going to have a node to plug it in, but you've got to make sure that it's actually enabled, because subsurface by default will not work. So you can see in here it's actually not showing up. So what you want to do is, instead of using two-sided in here, we can actually change it to a two-sided foliage node, which will then automatically allow us to use subsurface. So it simulates, shifts in color when light passes through a surface. So that's pretty cool. And now what we're going to do, we're going to work on the material itself. It's not that complicated. What we're going to do is create a new parameter in here, and we're going to call this SSS color, just so we know this is the color itself. And we're now going to add a multiply node over here. We are going to take the base color, and that's going to go into the A channel. The subsurface color will go into the B channel. Doesn't really matter actually how you do them, but regardless, that's what I'm going to put them on. We're going to add another multiply channel and a new scalar parameter, which is going to be called SSS intensity. This is going to go into the multiply over there like that. And now we want to add a lerp node. In this lerp node, we want to add a black color over into the A channel. So that means no subsurface. And then this is going to go into the B channel. Now we're going to have to generate an alpha here. And this alpha is going to be determined based on the basically the world position of the mesh. So I'm kind of experimenting with this. It's not exactly an exact science, but it shouldn't be too bad the way I'm doing it. So what we're going to do is going to take world position like that. We're also going to take the object local bonds. We're going to use the max setting in here. So what I want to do is I want to transform this transform position from absolute world space to local space. I'm going to then divide between the max object local bounds of the transform position, the local position here, and I'm going to plug that into the alpha like that, and then this lerp that we've got in here, this can actually go into our subsurface color in there, right? And now we're going to press apply. Now this is still needs a bit of tweaking and stuff. Once we've added it, just it seems, this is a bit of an odd one, it seems that even though you switch this over to a two-sided foliage, you still have to click this box, otherwise it won't work. Once we press apply, we should now be able to kind of see the effect that we added. So I'm just going to put the subsurface color maybe to like a orange or something like that. And now we can actually play around with the tint. You see how over there it's turning red? That's kind of the effect that I was going for, right? Now, some people, may like it. Some people may not like it. I think it adds a lot of sort of like depth to the plant, if you ask me. But again, if you go in here, you could just simply plug this into subsurface color like that, right? And just press apply. But you can see there what's happening if you do it that way, right? And this is why I'm using this lerp situation that I've done here. It just makes it look a lot more natural, right? This is quite a simple technique, but I think it's very effective, and it adds a lot of dramatic effect for your mesh. Now, if you don't like the idea of this particularly, showing up as red on this side and a green on this side because of this absolute world position and object local bounds setup, you can always take this multiply and drag it into the subsurface in there. So without using any of these nodes anymore, any of these here. And then if you click apply, then the color will be applied uniformly across, which means that if you go in here into the plant and, I don't know, for example, turn this to a bit redder, the tint being a bit more red or something like that, it's not going to look as nice as with the with that coordinate that I've used, the absolute world position, which I thought was giving such a nice vibe to everything. But again, nonetheless, this could be done this way as well if you'd like. So you can see there now we have some subsurface scattering that's a bit more, like green. So you could assume that this is what this will look like underneath to be more natural. But that's kind of the setup for the actual Unreal Engine of the plant. It's quite straightforward, and we're getting some really nice effects. I do like how the plant looks like in Unreal Engine after we've tweaked it and brought it in over in here. With this workflow complete, you now have everything you need to bring plants into Unreal Engine with a custom shader. In the next tutorials, we'll take it even further by adding wind effects and creating character interaction with the foliage. So if you're excited about that, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. As always, the project files are available in the description, and if you want even more content, check out my Patreon for access to exclusive projects. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.